Okay, Java JVM, it's a Java virtual machine. So actually, what is Java virtual machine? Uh, what is the purpose of this one? Okay, so we want to know about architecture of Java virtual machine. We will see in this class what is the architecture of Java virtual machine and how it will be work and actually where it is located. Okay, those are the points about Java virtual machine here. All right. As we discussed in previous class, actually every programming language program execution has two steps. What it is? Every programming language program execution has the two steps. The first step is the compilation. Okay, and the second step is the execution. First part is compilation of that program, second part is execution of that program. Okay, whenever we will compile a Java program, so that compilation unit will give us bytecode. That bytecode will send to a execution unit of a Java. Okay, that execution unit of Java has JVM. Okay, the execution unit of Java has JVM. Okay, for that, see in this diagram here. In this diagram, first one Java program, and that Java program will send to a compiler unit. So this unit will process the Java program and give the result of dot class file. That dot class file has the okay information, which means it will be translated into a bytecode. So this bytecode will send to a execution unit. Compiler is the one of the unit, second unit is execution unit. This Java execution unit has the okay JVM engine. Okay, what it is? JVM engine. So what is the purpose of this JVM engine? It will take the bytecode. Okay, it will take the bytecode and process this bytecode, and it will give the results as machine code, which means it will take the input as a bytecode, then it will process that bytecode and change that bytecode into a zeros and ones language. So that zeros and ones language is called a mission language, mission code. It will convert based on a operating system. So that mission code is sent to a processor CPU unit, and that CPU unit will work accordingly, will act accordingly and give the output to us. Okay, this is the total overall process of a Java virtual machine. Okay, for example, so here I have type. I'll give a one program that is calculate the addition of a plus b plus c. Suppose my program is addition of three numbers. Addition of three numbers. Now I will type the total Java program into a notepad, and that program okay saved that program into a okay addition.java. In C language, whenever you will type a C program, later while going for a saving, you will type by using .c, addition.c, subtraction.c, okay, like that multiplication.c. So extension of each and every file, you will use the .c. Like that, in Java also, okay, extension of Java code, Java file, okay, you will use .java. What it is? Java program will be saved with the extension of .java. So what is the program name here? Java, sorry, addition.java. Clear? So that addition.java program, okay, will send to a compiler unit. Okay, now we will use the compiler part. After so it will, this compiler unit will translate our Java program addition.java program into a bytecode. Now the file name is addition.class. What is the file name here? Output of compiler. Output of compiler. Our addition.java file is changed to the addition.class file. That addition.class file has the bytecode. Okay, addition.class file has a bytecode. So next, this addition dot class file is applied today or sent to a execution unit, which means Java virtual machine. So this Java virtual machine, okay, will translate this bytecode into a, okay, dot class file into a machine code, right, which means zeros and ones code. So after this, when after changing our program into a zeros and ones language, then we will transfer that program to the CPU unit for calculation purpose. Okay, after JVM output, JVM will translate the addition program into a mission language, zeros and ones language. So we will apply that zeros and ones language to the CPU. So CPU will read each and every instruction in that program. Okay, it will act accordingly, which means it will perform addition. A value, what is the A value, and what is the B value, and what is the C value. So what is the total of that three values? Okay, suppose A value is 10, B value is 10, C value is 10. So A plus B plus C means 10 plus 10 plus 10. So now we will get the result of 30. So the CPU unit will give the result to us, that is 30. That is the general process. Clear? And see the some of the points here, some of the points in Java virtual machine. What is the first point here? Java is called platform independent because of Java virtual machine. Okay, because of this Java virtual machine only, this engine only, okay, we will call Java is a platform independent language. Okay, that is the first point. Why? Because this Java virtual machine will translate the bytecode into the machine code. Okay, so so, so automatically, which system has the JVM unit, that all systems will translate bytecode into a machine code. So whenever we will install the Java into our laptop or computer, automatically JVM or JDK will be installed into our system. So whenever we are going to execute that one, so because of this JVM, so bytecode will be translated into the machine code. Later we will get the output. So because of this feature, okay, our Java language is called a platform independent one. Okay. And coming to the second point, JVM is the engine that drives the Java code. Okay, already we know that it's a engine part, one of the working area engine part. It will use to execute the Java code. Okay, that is our second point. Coming to third point, sorry, in second point also we have one more point, that is it is a part of JRE. Okay, JVM is a part of JRE. JRE in the sense Java runtime environment. Okay, Java runtime environment. About JRE we will discuss in next slide. Already we have some definition about JRE and also some JDK. Okay, we will discuss in next slides. Leave for now. Coming to the third point, when we compile a Java program, then bytecode is generated. So already we know that one. So when we compile a Java program, what it generates? Bytecode. Okay, this is the third point. When we compile a Java program, then bytecode is generated. And next, bytecode is the source code that can be used to run on JVM. So here For JVM, what we are sending to JVM? Bytecode. Bytecode is the source code that can be used to run on the JVM machine. Okay. So this is the third point. Next one, fourth one. JVM translates the bytecode into machine language. What JVM performs? JVM translates the bytecode into the machine code. Okay, that is the fourth point here. And next, JVM is responsible for allocating the necessary memory needed by the Java program. Okay, which means, so JVM architecture has some runtime memory also. Okay, there actually runtime memory. In that runtime memory, we are going to allocate the memory for each and every variable of a Java or object of a Java, and after that we are going to process in that particular memory. Later we will save the runtime results also in that particular memory. So that's why JVM is responsible for allocating the necessary memory for a Java program. Okay, whenever we will send the bytecode to the JVM unit, so what it has JVM unit? It has a runtime memory also. Okay, this what is the job of this runtime memory? Runtime memory is used to allocate the memory for a objects. Okay, and also it is used for process the data whatever we have. Okay, later it will translate the bytecode into the machine code. That is the responsibility, one of the responsibility of the JVM. And coming to the last point, JVM is responsible for deallocating memory space. So already we have discussed in yesterday's class, that is something robustness, about robustness. That robustness Java is strong enough. Why? Because two important features. One is exception handling, second one is memory management. So in yesterday itself we have discussed about the memory management. What memory management? In the sense, allocating of memory for a variables and deallocating of memory for that same variables will be done automatically in Java. Okay, so same point here we are repeating. What it is in JVM also, it will take the responsibility of allocating the memory for the object and also deallocating of memory for the object, memory space. So this total process will be done automatically. Okay, so that is the another point in JVM. And coming to the next slide. So Java Virtual Machine, this is some block diagram. What is the jobs of Java Virtual Machine? Okay, so it is a little architecture. It's not a complete architecture. It's just a outer overview of a Java Virtual Machine. Clear? So first of all, whenever we send a bytecode to Java Virtual Machine, so this total, this three parts, actually here we are having JVM unit now. So execution JVM unit now. So this execution JVM unit represents the below three parts. Clear? So which means this side we are sending the bytecode, and this at the end of the execution engine we are receiving the mission language. Okay, this is the structure here. So whenever we will send bytecode to a JVM, okay, so there is a unit called class loader. Class loader will load the bytecode. Okay, first of all, bytecode into a JVM mission. So if there are any errors in that bytecode, it will automatically reject the total program. Okay, if this class loader will find, okay, so that is called bytecode verification, bytecode verifier. What it will do, first of all, the class loader will load the bytecode program into the JVM engine, okay, JVM mission. So after loading of this bytecode, the bytecode verifier is there. The bytecode verifier is perform the task of, it will check the total program. If any errors are appear in that particular program, then it will reject the total code. Okay, if it doesn't have any errors in that particular program, okay, then it will, okay, it will send that particular bytecode into a runtime memory unit. Okay, so that runtime memory unit will be available between bytecode verifier and execution engine. In between these two, at this part, we are having a runtime memory unit of JVM. What it is? Runtime memory unit of JVM. So it will runtime memory of JVM will receive the bytecode after finishing of verification. Okay, and it will allocate the memory there. What will do that memory? So so here the runtime memory. So what is the purpose of that runtime memory? It will allocate the memory for each and every object of a program. Okay, each and every object of a program. And after that, okay, it will load some other library functions, some other native library functions to execute a Java program. Clear? Right? So that all tasks will be done by a runtime memory of a JVM. After allocating the memories for program objects, okay, the after that, that program will be, that objects will be sent to a execution engine. This execution engine has, okay, two two translator units combinedly. What are those? First one is a interpreter, second one is a compiler. What are those? The execution has once again two translation units. The two translation units are, the first one is interpreter and the second one is compiler. That compiler is also called as just-in-time compiler. So about just-in-time compiler and also a interpreter, okay, we have discussed in yesterday's class. Clear? So what is interpreter? What is compiler here? Compiler and interpreter both are language translators. Language translators. Okay. So here the compiler and interpreter will take a bytecode and these will translate that bytecode into a zeros and ones language. That is the job of execution engine here. Execution will perform translation of bytecode into the machine language. Okay. So this execution engine has two translators, compiler and interpreter. That compiler is used to change the total program at a time. It will convert the total bytecode program into mission code. That is the compiler job. What is the interpreter job? It will translate that program line by line. So line by line, this interpreter and compiler will togetherly work, and those will produce the output of mission code. So because of this engine, execution engine, okay, because of that interpreter and compiler, okay, togetherly work na. So those will work together, Nila. So automatically the performance of a Java will be more compared to a other programming languages. Clear? And this is about our Java virtual machine. Okay, so what is Java virtual machine? Java virtual machine is a execution unit. In this Java machine we have a class loader. Class loader is used to, okay, load the Java, I mean bytecode program into a JVM engine. After class loader, okay, we will have a bytecode verifier. This bytecode verifier will perform the verification of bytecode. If any errors are occur in that particular bytecode, then it will what reject that program, otherwise it will accept that program. After bytecode verifier, in between, after bytecode verifier we are having a some runtime memory part in JVM. That runtime memory part will allocate the memory for each and every objects of a bytecode. After the memory allocation, okay, and storing into that runtime memory, then that program is sent to the execution engine. That execution engine has, okay, two translators. First one is a interpreter, second one is a compiler. Okay, these two translators will change our bytecode into a machine code. Okay, then finally we will get the output of machine code. This is the job of a Java virtual machine. And coming to the next slide have a JRE and JDK. Okay, what is JRE? JRE means Java Runtime Environment. What is JRE? It is a Java Runtime Environment. It is a software package. What it is? It is a software package that provides Java class libraries, okay, along with Java virtual machine. Okay, if you look this diagram, in this diagram you have assume this total diagram is a JRE. Okay, if you will see this particular total box, in this box assume that this is a JRE, total JRE. This JRE has the first JVM engine, complete JVM engine. Okay, including that JVM engine, it has some class libraries. So combination of JVM plus class libraries is called a JRE. Okay, it is a just a software package. This package has JVM engine, engine mission plus class libraries. So class libraries means, okay, already you know, in C language, math.c, lang.c. So like that in strings.h, like that some header files are, we are using some header files in C language na. So those are called libraries of that C language. Okay, math.h, string.h. Okay, so like that some library files we are including in our program. So here also some class libraries are available in Java languages. Okay, so when this class files will come into our system, okay, with actually JDK, Java Development Kit. With that we will get, so JRE and compiler and debugger. Okay, if you'll see, the next one is JDK. JDK in the sense Java Development Kit. So what is Java Development Kit? It is a software development kit, contains everything that is in JRE plus tools such as compilers, debuggers to develop a applications in Java. Okay, generally if we want to install a package into our system to run a Java program, that package is called a JDK. What we call it as JDK. If we'll install the JDK, it will include it automatically. JRE will come. So with the JRE, automatically JVM plus some class libraries will come. So everything Java total packages will be installed into our system. Clear? So whenever we want to install a Java for execution purpose, okay, then we are going to install a package of JDK. So this JDK has JRE plus JVM, okay, plus class libraries, compilers, debuggers, everything. This is the kit, okay, Java installation kit or Java development kit. These are the related words for JVM. Clear? JVM is part of a JRE. JRE is a part of a JDK. That's it. Okay. Then our next concept is, this is the, by this JVM is finished. Now we have moved to second next concept, that is principles of OOPS. What it is? Principles of OOPS. Actually, what is OOPS here? What is OOPS? OOPS abbreviation is object oriented programs. Okay, object oriented programs is called OOPS. So what is this OOPS? Why we are learning here? Why, what is the need of principles are discussing here? Okay, that is our question. First of all, any programming language to become object oriented programming language, then it satisfies the below features. Okay, actually OOPS is a some one of some few features has with it. So because of these features, okay, by using these features we can develop our programs, that language become very good. Actually our what is our subject name? Object oriented programming through Java. Okay, Java is developed by using object oriented programming principles. What it is? Our subject name is object oriented programming through Java. Clear? So till now we have discussed about what is Java, what are the features of Java, okay, and how it will be work, okay. So like that, till now we have discussed, okay. But now we are going to discuss about what are the principles of OOPS, why we are using OOPS, okay, why Java is implemented in OOPS, by using OOPS, object oriented programming language, that is called OOPS. Our total concept or total subject is related to OOPS only. So Java is implemented by using OOPS. Why Java is implemented by OOPS? What are the advantages or principles? Okay, what are the features of OOPS? Now we are going to discuss. Clear? So so one of them, before going to the OOPS, in generally why we are going for OOPS means, before going to the principles, why what are the OOPS, why those these are the important in real time means, so if we develop a program in by using C language, if we develop a program or write a program by using C language, so that doesn't have any security, that doesn't provide any security to that particular variables or functions of that C program. Clear? Anybody can access the C language variables and also C language functions. Okay, there is no restriction at all. So that is a like public property. Okay, if suppose um if suppose if we will use, nowadays we are using a lot sanitizer. Okay, if I'll put one sanitizer bottle outside, I mean in front of my home, okay, in front of my house. So, or I mean near to some a road. So anybody can use that, which means that is a public property. Outside of my house means that is a public property. Anybody whoever walked through that road, that maybe came or stand wait a minute and they may use the sanitizer itself. Okay, why? Because I kept that sanitizer bottle outside or it on road. That's why any can have the authority to access that. If that same sanitizer bottle I'll keep it my home, I'll keep inside my home means nobody can use that one, only my family members can use that particular sanitizer. Okay, that is the difference. Okay, if something, if one thing will be open for all, so all may use, so there is no security. If I'll keep that bottle in outside of my home means there is no security for that sanitizer bottle. So anybody can use or anybody can take away. Okay, they will carry with them and they'll take that particular sanitizer bottles to their home also. Okay, there is no security for that. But that same bottle I'll keep in my home means nobody can take that one, nobody dare to touch that one, I mean only except my family members. Clear? So like that, here there is a difference between object oriented programming language and C language. C language means whatever the variables and functions we have defined in C language, that may be used by any program or any member, any person. Okay, so that is the drawback of C language. But if we'll write any program by using object oriented programming language, it will provide security. What it will do? It will provide security to our data or programs. Okay, it won't give the public access until unless, okay, we are ready to give. Okay, and without any permission it won't allow any unauthorized persons to access its variables, methods, whatever there within that particular program. Okay, so because of that security reason, so the programming language Java can be developed by using this uh, oops oops. Okay, and coming to the first principle of a OOPS is what is object, what is class, what is data abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. What is object? Object in the sense already we have discussed in yesterday's class. Object in the sense it's a variable. In C language we call it as variable. Okay, variable means it holds a value. Okay, right. Already yesterday we have discussed a equal to 20. A is a variable, 20 is a value, that is in C language. But here also same, a equal to object, 20 is a value. Clear? So here we are using the technical term is object. Object is a variable of class. What is the object here? Object is a variable of class, is known as an object, or otherwise it is a real time, it's a thing. or real-time instance. In general cases, we call it as object is a thing. Okay, whichever touched by a human being. Okay, like a phone is a thing, laptop is a thing, earphones is a thing. Okay, like that, it is a thing in real time. It's an instance of real time. Okay, and also it is a variable of a class. Variable of a class. Now we are going to discuss about what is a class. What is the second one? The second principle of OOPS. What is a class? A class is a way of binding the data and associated methods in a single unit, which means, okay, we are whenever we have declared some objects, sorry, some variables and some methods in functions, we are using some methods now. So some here also we are having some methods. So what are the variables and the associated the methods are stored under a particular name is called a class, which means, for example, okay, so laptop is a variable or object. Assume laptop is a variable or object. Where I will keep this laptop? Okay, in some one room, in living room. So that living room is a class. So why we are keeping placing this laptop in your living room? Okay, for a security purpose. If I'll keep this laptop outside of my house, means on road, means, okay, anybody will come and take off this laptop. Okay, by avoiding that or by providing the security to my laptop, I'll keep this laptop into a room. That room is called a class here. Got my point, all of you? What is a class here? A class is a, okay, some place to store variables or data and methods under a single unit. Actually, it's just a one what name. It's not a real. It's just one what virtual one. It is a virtual one. Is it clear what is class and what is object? Object is a thing or it's a variable. Class is a one protection area or it's a single unit to store the methods and variables under one name. So if anybody want to access that variables or methods, compulsory they should take the permission of class. Okay, okay, then only they'll interact with the variables of that class. Like some structures concept. I think you have finished structures concept in C. If you want to access the members of structure, then you must use a reference variable and you must need a permission to access that structure with name, isn't it? So that particular total variables are, okay, properties of that particular structure. Here also, in Java also, like a structure. Once remember the structure, recollect the structure concept. Like a structure concept, their structure name. Okay, how we are writing a structure name now. Here also class name, right? There you will declare variables with the values or without values, that is your wish. Here also I am declaring objects with values or without values in a particular class, where in a particular class. Clear? So that class will protect the my objects and my methods, whatever I have written in a Java. Because of this class feature, so it will provide more security. So object oriented programming language provides a more security than C language. That's why we are preferred this language, and Okay, those are developed the Java language by using these concepts only. Clear? Okay, and more four principles are there: data abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. Okay, as of now, I'll stop this class. Why? Because 11:15 you have, I think, another class. I think so. Okay, we will continue in next class.